Today's guest is someone who has done it all, from leading billion-dollar companies across 6 continents to building startups from scratch and taking them to exit. With over 25 years of experience, he's been called the master of the business pivot by CEO Today for helping companies reinvent themselves in tough times. And he's walked the talk himself, building and making bold career moves, moving from cybersecurity to management consulting and then into the world of startups, scaling them all the way to successful exits. And he's now the co-founder of 2 exciting ventures, including Tapsphere, which is in the future of work space. And if that wasn't enough, he's also the author of several best-selling books on Web3, AI, and pricing, and has advised on hundreds of deals throughout his career. So he is someone who's definitely not afraid to break boundaries. I'm really glad to have you here on the show today. Welcome, Nitin Kumar.
Thank you, Naluka. Pleasure to be here and happy to help and share my insights in any way.
Amazing. So I would like to start by asking you, obviously from that quite lengthy introduction, you have done a lot. People are going to be watching this thinking, wow, he's led businesses, he's done books, he's been on podcasts and interviews and all of this. And you've ticked so many boxes. I'm curious to know, what is it that still gets you up in the morning? What is still driving you?
I think the answer would have varied in different points in life and different points in my career. Right now, it's about impact and trying to break the structural barriers, right? It's really about making an impact and kind of leaving that legacy behind, as well as kind of driving value to all the stakeholders, including our customers and partners and all that. And I think I'm very passionate about inventing new ways of doing this. And one of the mantras that I follow is that we're not trying to make the old better. We've all done it. We're all smart. We can do it. I think it's about dimensioning new ways of doing work and new ways of kind of adding value to the economy.
Amazing. And you mentioned there, I picked up on how, things have changed throughout your career. So I like to ask people this: how has your definition of success changed from 21-year-old Nitin to now? How has that evolved?
Look, I think the era has shifted pretty drastically, right? So if you think about it, we all grew up in a very pyramidical era, pre-dot-com, right? There were more people, less jobs, and the only way success was dimensioned was the job, right? And technology and the internet were weak and evolving, right? They were not as strong as they were today. AI was still a paper concept. So you dimensioned yourself with success on how much money you made, how many people you managed, and what type of an organization title and responsibilities you had. Now, in some ways, that's a learned skill, and you need to learn how to operate at scale and build those processes. But as technology evolved and the internet evolved and various things came into play, more opportunities came in, I think some of those KPIs sort of changed pretty significantly, right? It was really using technology asymmetry to hit the old economy, and then the new economy of the first part of the decade was born, right? Now, I think it's technology is commoditized, right? Everybody can build an AI and everybody has access to the internet, and those asymmetries have gone away. Now it's really about how can you reinvent your mind and kind of get ahead of the game and see what's coming in future. There's also a demographic shift. There is also the velocity of money has changed. So all these things have kind of impacted how the global workforce comes together. So it's a very significant change in how you measure success and what is success, what is scale. Even if you go in an interview, you ask somebody from the old world, how big is your business? If somebody says it's X hundred people, I don't think you need to ask the next question, right? If he says it's X million or X billion in revenue, I think we have a conversation there. So you can actually look at where the mind is.
Okay. And I'm curious to know, on a more personal level, thinking about success. So, if I think about when I was 21, I really cared about brand name on my CV, pay, all of that coming straight out of uni, right? And as I get older, I realize that my approach to what success means is evolving all the time. So how has it changed on a personal level for you?
Look, it's again, these are all vanity metric, right? Brand, logo, XYZ, you go from one place to the other, nothing really changes structurally. But you have to look at it from the first principles, right? Every human being only requires 4 things. Okay. It's like really professional fulfillment and good quality of work, growth, money, and actually progress, recognition, right? And the order of these may change on where you are in your life, right? If you're in your 20s coming out, buying a house, it may be different. And at a different point in time, life is different. You may be looking for a cerebral kick, right? And various other manifestations of that. So if you really look at what and remix these fours, depending on where you are in your life, right? You will so quickly realize that even a brand doesn't hold that much value. It's not something that you have contributed anything to. Okay. So let's take a very practical example. And when we transitioned into startups, if you just look at sales, there's three things in there. There's opening, engagement, and closing. If you run into a big multi-billion dollar P&L, you're terrible at opening. Okay. You're absolutely terrible at opening because the big machine and the big brand opens the sale for you. You can get by with mediocre engagement because again, look, you have infinite resources and money, you can get by and people gravitate to you because not who you are, because of what you do. In the big companies, you're wired to be excellent closers. If it's a 70-80% probability, you will go and close it. You come into a startup, you're almost like exposed, naked, right? There's nobody opening for you. It's your personal brand that's going to drive your credibility, and you need to open the sale. You have to engage extremely well with the prospect and kind of get it into a corner, and then closing goes without saying, right? So there are some skills that you have to transition out of. And how do I explain this to you in simpler terms, right? Don't fall in love with your t-shirt and a logo of a big company. That's not who you are. The moment that logo goes, your personality and your ego goes with it. So make yourself bulletproof so that you're driving success on your own merit, attracting people because of who you are, not because of where you work and what t-shirt you wear. I think it's a very profound lesson when people transition.
I love that. And I think it's so interesting, isn't it? I've spoken to founders quite early on in their journey. Sometimes they say to me, I wish I'd left earlier, but I was so embedded in the organization. And that actually leads me nicely on to the next question I have for you, which is many people, when they're in corporate for 10, 15, 20 years, they are very much, they're molded in corporate. And to go into startups is very difficult. Not only that, but a lot of people I see, they tend to just stick to corporate. You get to CEO level like you were at, and then it's kind of like, okay, I'll get a board position, maybe I'll be chairman. But you said, no, I want to start my own thing. Tell us a little bit around why.
Firstly, I actually appreciate and respect people who are in corporate, right? Because they are used to a certain way and it's a comfort zone. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. It takes a special skill and a special drive to come and do that, right? And I think in a big company, you learn structure, discipline, ability to operate at scale and kind of run a business, okay, quote unquote, run a business. That's very different from building a business. Okay. The skill set you need to do is to completely rewire your plumb. It's basically, I give this analogy to everybody. You own the plane. You think you own the plane. You own a seat on the plane, basically. You bought the ticket. You have air traffic control that ensures your safety. You have a crew, you have trained members, and all you need to do is follow directions. Once in a while, you go fly up and down, and in your mind, you think that is innovation, right? In a startup, you're assembling plane with no resources. At the same time, you're building the runway. You want to put the crew in the plane and make sure nobody dies. Until Series B, you can die every day. So it's a very different skill. Operating and building are very different KPIs altogether.
So why change? Because using that analogy, the second example is much scarier. So did you just feel in your career you wanted a change? You wanted to try kind of these different components, not just having a seat on the plane? I'm really curious to know, like, what
Yes,
was
so
that
let's go
internal
back to
drive?
that. I'm sorry, I didn't answer that question, right? So somewhere in the middle of the last decade, some patterns started to emerge on me, right? And corporate also does a lot of damage. It creates risk aversion and it kind of narrows. So in that zone, and I was consulting with big Fortune 500 companies and stuff like that. Something dawned on me sitting on an airplane, by the way, pardon my obsession for airplanes. The old economy is unable to build the new, right? And the pattern is very clear. If you go back to 1800s to whatever, the inertia and that narrow tunnel vision, the structural barriers are so high that you think you're innovating something. You're not, right? So if you are a cab company, you think I have infinite resources and I can build a mobile app, but you are not Uber. That's not innovation. Okay. If you're Blockbuster Video, I get it. You have like a war chest of money, but shipping a DVD on a drone to Niluka and Nitin is not creating value. Completely missing Netflix. So as I looked at it, right, digital transformation was the big buzzword. Actually, if you look at how many old economies have, the short answer to that is zero, like zero, literally. Yes, you've digitally transformed the process. You may have digitized an asset, but you have not successfully transitioned over to the new world, including then people who call themselves the new economy in the Silicon Valley. Now, look at this very clearly with a dispassionate view. When COVID hit, what happened? These companies started selling digital transformation to the prior era companies, right? But they did not digitally transform. You brought on significant number of headcount in a very analog way. You did not put process and systems. And it was amazing that your KPIs were hit, right? 3 years of your growth was front loaded in that 1 year of pandemic. Take Zoom, take Adobe, take DocuSign, take Netflix, whoever. Now, when the party went off, I was like, oh my God, we overhired with analog era and we grew with headcount. So that was not very clear. And then we know what happened to the party, right? So you have to really think through what is digital transformation and how will the old become the new,
So
right?
you were on this plane. I'm going back to the question. You were on this plane and you saw this and you were experiencing this. And what did you think? You thought, I want to be able to build the new myself. Was that what went
So
through your
first,
mind?
the first part of the question is that I did not want to be on the old because I was not in the bandwagon to make the status quo better, right? At the same time, I started seeing patterns on how do you build the new. For that, you have to unlearn the old. And I think that was the big journey on how do you do the unlearning. And I think the value that can be significantly unlocked is multifold as compared to sitting in the old economy and trying to march to a drumbeat.
Right.
But if you cut out from that mindset and you're happy with that and you have a linear progression in corporate, that's fine. I was not that guy. So I thought
Yes.
I could reinvent the way things are done with technology and also with the newer assets at my disposal.
Okay, so it sounds like you thought going out on your own would give you a bit more of that freedom to be able to be in this new world and to build and have the impact that you really wanted to have. It's interesting you mentioned there about the need to unlearn. In one of your reports, you say, and I quote here, be hands-on and think outside the norm. This is for someone moving from corporate to entrepreneurship. What made you successful in one role does not guarantee success in another role or company, another era, or another culture. Please leave your experience behind and bring your expertise that can create value. Can you expand a little bit on this? Especially, people will be listening to this saying, well, leave my experience behind. Tell me
Yeah,
more.
just take a look at it. We all went to schools and colleges, and most of what we studied isn't relevant anymore, right? What we knew in the pre-internet era is not relevant anymore. I think the rate of change is so fast right now, and unfortunately, it's never going to be this slow again. So if you have worked 21 years in name your 100-year-old company, right, without sort of dissing anybody, I think there has been a structural barrier to change, and people thread that I know this, hence I will do this way because I've done it a million times. The world isn't doing that, right? Uber was invented because cab companies couldn't do it. And maybe there are very, very smart people inside there who are not able to do it. So I think we're all smart. We can all learn. I give that to everybody. It's really innocent until proven guilty. But when you come into a startup, you bring that baggage. Oh, I need like 10 CRM systems. I need 25 people. This is how it is. We don't take risks. We are not optimizing for risk in a startup. We are taking risks. Entrepreneurship is the biggest risk. We are optimizing for value. It's a different mindset. And if you cannot unlearn that, right, that's the whole problem.
Got it. So, for anyone watching this now, I've seen in my career, and I'm sure you've seen in your career as well, there are certain people, I was in corporate like you before I went into entrepreneurship, certain people who they are able to unlearn, but they also have certain skills and qualities that mean they thrive in entrepreneurship. And as you said at the start of today's interview, right, there are some people who entrepreneurship is not for them. So, can you just share a little bit around for someone thinking about starting a business but wondering, is this for me? Should I really go down this path? What would you be kind of telling them to ask themselves? What
Yeah,
skills
I
would
think you
you?
need to ask yourself three questions, right? Are you really professionally fulfilled where you are, right? Second, do you have the courage to go do something new? Can you operate with minimal resources? And how much confidence do you have in your expertise, right? Because the mental model is that I've learned these skills in the old world in corporate and I can apply them here. The short answer to that is no, because when you start your entrepreneurship journey as a founder, you are the plumber, you are the finance person, you are the accountant, you are the coder, you are the product people. So your skill, narrow based skill that you thought you're going to apply has to get broader. You need to be a T-shaped skill set, right? A depth in one area is great, but that may not even be applicable, right? Until a company kind of builds itself to a certain level. And I think people who have the intellectual curiosity to go learn new things as well as sort of let go the past is a definite answer that you will succeed because you have the drive, energy, and the mental model to unlearn. You need to, again, bet on who you are, not what you learned in the last century.
Absolutely. I think there's a bit around ego there as well, because I noticed that some founders who come from corporate, they have led like 50-person teams, 5,000-person teams, and they think, well, I did so well in corporate that I'm going to be great in entrepreneurship. And because they have that ego, they think that they don't need to learn. And as you and I know, entrepreneurship requires a lot of learning.
See, again, go back to that. That was running a company and this is building a company. They're very different. Okay. So the answer that I tell you to go back is, do you know how to read a term sheet? Probably yes, 100 times, 200 times. Do you know how to write a term sheet? No, you have to learn it. Building a business and operating a business are very different. Even running 10,000 people is great, right? You know how to operate and scale, but the art of mass management and the art and science of like being hands-on and building something are slightly different skills, right? And there is a need to operate in a certain way in corporate, in a certain way in a startup.
Let's talk a little bit around the future of work, because this is an area you and I are both in. And I'd like to ask you in one sentence, what is TapSphere and what does it aim to do, especially for Gen Z?
Look, Gen Z is cut from a different demographic, and it's a whole different. It's a different demographic with different characteristics. A whole different discussion, right? Let's sort of go into that. I think the future is shifting to income generation and not having a linear job. So, as I mentioned, TapSphere is trying to gamify work and kind of get people in more proving their skill set and not getting these resumes screened out by AI and stuff like that, right? It's basically that's gamified work. You learn operations through games and kind of have real metric that real people can use and validate your skills.
Okay. And it's not just aimed at Gen Z. It seems that that's kind of your focus to start with, but tell me if I'm wrong.
We are focused on Gen Z. Now, when I say Gen Z, we don't look at it as a certain age group. Now, everybody has Gen Z like characteristics in them or could have, right? So they're also part of the target group. But it's largely the shift is that the path from the pyramid era became cylindrical. Now with Gen Z, there's a spherical opportunity. You can go anywhere. And the future is really going to be about income generation. And it's about enabling that skills in more than a unipolar, unidimensional swim lane sitting in a corporate, right? And through gamification, which
Absolutely. And I know you and I have spoken before around how future work, it's not going to be just around titles and roles, but actually income generation. And I think for the younger generations, they have more opportunity than ever. What do you think, thinking about the skills that, anyone actually is going to need in the future of work, right? We're seeing so many changes happening. What are the skills that you would say? I know you've got some young children yourself, but also to someone watching this who are maybe they're in kind of middle of their career and they're seeing things changing around them. What top skills do you think we're going to need in this new world of work?
well, I think you can very easily bucket them into three, right? By definition, the new economy is fast changing, volatile, and all that, right? So your number one skill is your ability to navigate uncertainty and ambiguity, right? The second thing is to kind of have a judgment and ability to bet on yourself with 70-80% accurate data. If you kind of wait for 90-95% accuracy, I think you're going to miss the boat. Take a bet on 70-80% accuracy and take that risk, right? And I think the third one is to really look at critical thinking, right? How do I challenge the what if this was not this way, right? So you reinvent yourself and you have resources. And obviously, I'm not going into all the cliches, right? Use artificial intelligence, use Web3. Everyone knows that, right? The skills and navigate uncertainty and ambiguity. I think you can challenge the structural barriers of the status quo. If you do that, I think you've proven that you have talent. If you have talent, skills can be picked up anytime. It's much more easier these days.
Do you think AI is going to take our jobs?
AI is absolutely going to take jobs, right?
And what does
But
that mean?
it's really going to be people who are not able to reinvent. I know people have a narrative that AI is not taking jobs, they're going to make it better and all that. That's all like for media consumption. If you look at real hard data on what's happening in different places, it is absolutely taking engineering jobs. I think there are two sets of people who are going to be broad bucket successful. Either you create something, and that something doesn't have to be technology. It can be content, it can be whatever, new structures, paradigms, whatever, and the ability to sell something. I think all else is going to be irrelevant. AI can either augment it from 5% to 100% and everything in between. But these two skills are paramount for the new generation and the new economy to succeed. Think about what you can create and think about how you can sell it. That doesn't mean going door to door and selling, nor peddling through social media. There will be new avenues there, and I think you have to challenge those norms. But broadly, ask yourself the question: am I good at creating something? What is it? How easy is it to sign up? And do I need somebody else to sell it?
So it seems like with the way that the world of work is changing, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a good entrepreneur, then this will be in your favor because you have to create something and you have to be able to sell it. I'm curious also the role of personal brands because again, in one of your reports you talk about this and you say even if you're in corporate now, we need to build a personal brand. But when you're in corporate, there's a little bit of kind of stigma. People think it's self-promoting, all of this. I remember when I was at KPMG, it really helped me stand out, but not many people were posting. So, can you share a little bit more around the nature of the personal brand and how it might be an asset in terms of your career, entrepreneurship, future
You
work?
don't even have to look at me or look at yourself or look at any of the old economy companies. Who's a bigger brand today, Elon Musk or Tesla? Tesla spends nothing on marketing. You look at Salesforce, is Mark Benninghouse following, and look at Salesforce following. And these people have not built it like in 2 days. They came through the ranks over years. Yes, it gave them like those compounding effects after a certain point in time. So these are the guys who were also sitting in some old economy companies and some things at some point in life in their career, they were nobody. So the impact is profound, right? People have to give you work for who you are and your expertise, not because of where you work and that logo. There is a stigma there that used to be. I think people are trying to learn that and it's self-promoting and all that, right? That stigma continues because they want you to promote the company. But then that doesn't compound the value. You're still in an echo chamber. You promote the company, company promotes you. You are the t-shirt, the t-shirt is you. You are still a seat in a passenger plane sitting in a specific area in a specific zone, right? I think the more you do personal branding, I'll give you my experience of that. Once I had a network, it was very easy for me to learn something. So back in 2020, I wanted to learn autonomous driving, right? So you see those things that come on LinkedIn with a bunch of logos, right?
Hmm.
All kinds of companies. These are the top 100 autonomous driving companies or augmented reality or whatever. So I said, I know 50 of them. So let me start talking to them. By the time I had 20 conversations, I could see patterns they were not seeing because these are guys who have validated the market in some size, shape, form, right or wrong. I could see who could partner with who. I could put deals together. I could see what not to do, where the value is, who's locking that. You have another 30, 40 conversations. And by the time you have about 50, 60 of them, right, you are an expert in your own way. Then you can go and deep dive and all that. You exactly know what these guys are thinking, how they came to this point, all that kind of stuff. Without a
Hmm.
personal brand, I try doing these things. You'll have to probably go read a book, go into a training class, and you're going to get a fraction of value what you get from there, right?
So,
And also help these people. If you help these people, then you're part of that ecosystem. Connect
okay.
them with each other.
So I was going to say, from a kind of very practical level, for someone watching this now who's saying, okay, Nitin, you've been in CEO Today magazine, you've been interviewed, etc., you've published books, your personal brand is strong. And even looking at me and my LinkedIn and my personal brand, someone might be watching this thinking, well, I've got like 200 followers on LinkedIn. I'm doing well in my career, but I don't feel like I'm anything special. Practically, what would you be telling them to do to build their brand?
I think firstly, the followers is a vanity metric, right? You can be immensely successful with 100,000 followers and not be successful with 2 million followers, right? Personal brand is a living thing. You got to maintain it and make it current and relevant. I really think start talking about something what's passionate and measure action, not followers. Likes are all a vanity metric, right? What do you get out of your following, right? Can you help somebody? Can somebody help you? Can you become I think my measure of success brand is that can you be the center of gravity of that ecosystem that you can orchestrate stuff for them? And it's an exchange of value. Personal brand to me is not really about number of likes and your reach. The moment you can exchange meaningful value with 100 people, you have a 10,000 worth network, right? The main thing is that even if you're looking at an audience, you post something and they like ones, it's like a digital transaction at a given point in time. Are you
Mhm,
truly exchanging value with the whole
mhm,
content? So
mhm.
it's really how you do that again from 2 to 100 is call people into the events. This is what they do. And you have to invest time in it. It's not free. Do that
Mm,
10 times over and your personal brand will compound in the network. Obviously,
that's
genuinely
really
connect with
interesting.
people and genuinely help them. Small
Yes,
events become big events. Big
yes.
events become compounding network effects. So to me, it's not about follower count. It's about how quickly can you uh, create throughput of value through the network.
So you're almost saying actually to build a personal brand is to build a network in a way, right? Because the more people, as you say, that you go and speak to and you become known, then your brand increases, etc. And I think that's really valuable because many people are hesitant to start posting because they think, building a personal brand equals must go on Instagram and LinkedIn and just post something. But actually, this is a lot more strategic.
Yeah, so it's really measure yourself with throughput of value, right? For example, let's say you want to get a Gen Z expert in Southeast Asia. How quickly can you get through it, and can that add value to somebody else in your network? You may not be that person, but can you be that facilitator? So that creates your personal brand at a global level, and it compounds very quickly.
Absolutely. I'm curious to know, thinking about new world, old world, thinking about AI and its impact, thinking about, okay, we're moving to income generation. How can you create? How can you sell? Everything that you've spoken about. Would you say you're optimistic about where the future of work is going? Because I speak to some people and they're really not. They're very worried. There's a lot of anxiety. They think that, what AI is going to do is going to be potentially harmful. I speak to other people who are, raving about it. What's your stand? Optimistic? Not?
Look, this is a very philosophical discussion, and these shifts are nothing new. When the printing press came, jobs went, new jobs came. When computers came, all those data entry and stenographic and typing, all those jobs went. They all invented themselves. Same with the internet, right? Human beings are fundamentally very resilient, and sometimes we create reasons to worry about, right? I think you need to overcome them. AI is an opportunity, it's not a risk. If it's a risk to not use AI, actually, or not be on the bandwagon. But this time it's different. Why is it different? The internet did not have the internet to proliferate this speed. So if you don't reinvent yourself, I think you have every reason to worry about. And if you want to hold on to your old beliefs, structures, organization cultures, and all that, I think you have a lot to worry about. But if you are willing to break those barriers and think on how do I view this as an opportunity, I don't think there is nothing anything to worry about. As I said before, human beings are very resilient. They will reinvent. Now, what is that catalyst for you to reinvent yourself? That is something an individual has to figure out.
Reinvention. It's almost like keep up or get left behind. So it's
People are
almost like
left behind.
optimistic if you can, do all the things that we've been saying. And if you're able to do that, then future work could look very nice indeed. But if not, then it might be a challenge. Amazing. So to end these episodes, I normally have some quick fire questions,
Sure.
a little bit of fun. So one word to describe your corporate life. One word.
Interesting.
One word to describe your life now.
Exciting.
What is a book or a podcast that has changed your thinking?
Abundance. Peter Demandis.
And what's a daily habit that you swear by?
Waking up at 4 in the morning and getting productive work done.
Wow, you're one of those. Do you also do an ice bath?
No,
No.
not yet.
So this show is called Breaking Boundaries. What is the boundary, the barrier that you personally want to break?
I think we need to transition to operate at massive scale with minimal resources, right? And it's very hard to explain this because we did created human generation content with a lot of human beings in the workforce. I think it's going to be the opposite. We need to manage gargantuan galactic scale data with minimal resources. I think that'll create new structural opportunity.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I hope that this has been an interesting discussion. I'm sure our viewers found it very interesting. If people want to learn more about you, your work, they can find you where?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. They can follow me there. I also spend Friday afternoons answering questions for new founders and new entrepreneurs. I really want people to succeed and, try to help them in any possible way.
Thank you so much, Nitin. It's been great to speak to you.
All right. Thank you, Nalika.
Thank you.